Robert Plank Show, episode 327, Vending Machine Franchising. Find entrepreneurial success from small goals and consistent action with Matt Miller. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. We're talking right now with Matt Miller from ssvbusiness.com, and he's going to talk about School Spirit Vending's franchising program. And it sounds like a lot of fun, sounds like lots of cool stuff. So, Mr. Matt, welcome to the show.
Hey, Robert, thanks for having me on, man. This is awesome.
I think it's awesome too. I'm glad to have you on. So, can you kind of tell us about who you are and what your business is all about?
So, I'm a former Air Force pilot and recovering advertising executive who got the itch to start a business here about 6.5, 7 years ago. And initially was doing some work in the candy and gumball world, trying to make ends meet on top of my full-time career in the advertising business. And '07 and '08 hit, the market tanked, and I found myself doing business in schools, helping them raise money. Fast forward to today, School Spirit Vending is a franchise. We've got just shy of 100 franchisees in about 42 states around the U.S. We're in about 2,500 schools currently, and hope to be moving into Canada here within the next 3 or 4 months as well.
Great stuff. And so, what I'm sort of hearing from you from that story is it sounds like you kind of were doing like more than one thing at a time, which I really like sort of having a day job and having the thing on the side, so that when the stuff hits the fan, which it seems like sometimes life happens or economy goes up and down. Once the stuff hit the fan, then you were kind of ready to sort of jump ship. And so, you said that you kind of you did the advertising stuff and then the kind of candy and gumball world. And how did you get into that? Like, how did that thing sort of start to begin with?
Well, I was working in the advertising space, and I learned real quickly that when you're with a publicly traded company, the rules are constantly changing and they're never in your favor. And there were some decisions that were made corporately that significantly hurt my family financially, to the point where I had to do something else because the comp plan wasn't going to support what I needed financially. But I loved the job that I had at the time. I was able to work out of the house. I was able to, control my own schedule, made good money, but not enough with a family of 5. So I started out initially collecting aluminum cans. I sold used books on Amazon for several years before selling books on Amazon was cool. I had a buddy at church one Sunday mentioned candy and gumball machines, and that he and his young daughters had a couple, and they were doing something together as a family and making some money. And I remember that conversation. And even though a gumball in the U.S. is 25 cents, the margins at the time or the markup was about 1,000%. So, and the machine does all the selling. So I was like, maybe I should look into this vending thing. And one thing led to another. And I decided, because of a lot of factors, my time, but also the amount of capital, which is almost nothing that I had at the time, I decided that I needed to give this vending thing a try. So I bought my first used candy and gumball machine on eBay for about $36. Was able to drive across Houston, where we lived at the time, and pick it up with a couple of my kids in my Honda Accord one Saturday morning. And the next week, once work was done, I went about knocking on doors and starting to teach myself vending. And fast forward about a year and a half, I had about 125 locations or so around Houston, had ventured into toys and temporary tattoos and stickers and that kind of thing. And it was '07 and '08 and the market tanking and revenues dropping off, which ended up giving me that aha moment and allowed us to transition with the idea of custom school spirit stickers for schools with sticker machines, which is what we do today with School Spirit Vending.
And that's super great stuff. And it just sounds like sort of one thing led to another. Like you heard about the gumball thing, you got your gumball machines, and then then that sounds like that led to all those like temporary tattoos and stuff like that. And so I'm sort of curious about that sort of period of time when you were learning about vending and you were knocking on doors. And so how did that sort of learning curve go for you? Like did your church friend, did he become like a mentor, or did you do any kind of like research, or how did you kind of go from not knowing much to having this all figured out?
No, my buddy really didn't know anything about vending at all, except for he had a couple gumball machines. And so I couldn't turn to him. I bought several books on Amazon and, taught myself the basics just by reading. And then after a little bit, I ended up stumbling across a Yahoo group that was geared towards bulk vending, which is what we do. And that gave me a lot more background. The thing that I've learned about myself over the years, Robert, is I'm a doer. My wife and I, we just went on a long 4.5 day weekend for our 24th anniversary this last weekend, and we were having a conversation about some stuff around the house, and she said, "Sweetie, you are a doer. I'm a thinker," and it couldn't be better. A better description of me is I'll go do and figure it out as I go versus overthink things before I get started. And that's what I did with vending.
And that sounds like a really great observation as far as like you're the doer and your wife's a thinker. And so I mean, as far as like being a doer and figuring out things as you go, like I mean, like what kind of things do you think that you do differently or that you do better compared to those people that kind of don't take enough as much action as they should?
I think the biggest thing is there's a wall in front of me. I'm going to figure out how to get through it. And it may take me a while. And I may have to try a multitude of different avenues to get it done. But I don't quit. I've got a dogged focus and drive. And it may take a while, like I said, but we'll figure it out. And that's what happened with vending. And that's what's happened with a lot of things over the last number of years, especially. I've started a couple of podcasts. I've started a comic book company. I'm actually just about to release a book in the school fundraising space. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff a couple of years ago, but you put your mind to it, you do some research, and then you get in the game and figure it out. And I've found over the years that there's very few things that are permanent or that can cause, permanent harm or damage in business if you're wise about the decisions you make. So I'm not afraid to lose some money, to lose some time, to mess up a little bit here and there in order to figure out the right path to take, and the path that I can build a business upon.
And I love that, and that's very reassuring that like you said, not, things aren't always permanent. And I think that a lot of us kind of have a lot of false starts, or might kind of go on a path and have a business that runs for a while and make some money, and then some things kind of fizzle out. But I think that I really kind of like your attitude, your philosophy here, that like you're kind of always kind of moving forward and seeing what the next thing is, knowing that like maybe like only 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 10 of those might sort of work. And so when you're in sort of that zone, when you're like in that focus stage, when you're in that kind of learning stage, I mean, what's your kind of schedule like? Are you the kind of person that like you kind of jump in and spend every waking hour thinking about this, or do you carve out like time every day, or like what's sort of your schedule like when you're in this kind of like beast mode?
I have a really short attention span. I don't know why that is, but I'm not the guy that can spend all day working on one thing. I just can't. It's just like before you and I hopped on today, my wife and I are doing some additional gardening and landscaping and that stuff around the house. And I had about an hour and a half to get a little bit of that done. I have been done whether you and I had this interview scheduled or not, because I'd had enough of that for a while. So now I come in, I spend some time with you. I've got a mastermind call after that. I meet with my web guy after that, and then I might jump into some more gardening later. But what I've learned is I will set 90-day goals, and then I just take a simple Excel spreadsheet and I break each of those goals down into steps that can happen within, an hour or two. And I put a date next to each of them. And then I slowly but surely, in a very, very methodical and boring fashion, tick off those steps. I'm not expecting to have that book done, in a week or in a couple of days. I started a couple of months ago, knowing it was going to take some time, having a final deadline in the back of my mind, but even realizing that even if that has to vary a little bit, that's okay because I'm a lot further along, in this case, 2 months later, by incrementally getting the work done than just trying to slam myself into it. Inch by inch, everything's a cinch. Yard by yard, it's hard. And I have gotten really good at incremental, inch by inch progress each and every day, whether it be with SSV, whether it be with the fundraising book, whether it be Marlon and Percy, the comics, or whether it be stuff here around the house. And in the process, I got a lot of things going on and I got a lot of progress going on the side. People who are around me are like, holy smokes, how does this guy get all this stuff done? Well, or all of a sudden I launch a book. I just got picked up by a publisher for our comics, all these things. And everybody's like, oh, whoa, what? Wait a second. Well, I've been working on that stuff for several years. It just all happens to be hitting at the same time. So you look like a hero. It's not really a hero at all. It's just incremental progress a little bit every day and being excited and satisfied with that incremental progress.
I love that, and that's awesome. And I can definitely relate to a lot of that as far as like, a little bit every day kind of adds up over time. If we were to take, if we were to do something for an hour a day, just, 1 hour every day, and after a year, that's 365 hours. I mean, who knows how many, days or weeks that is just like adding up just from that little bit. And so as you're describing that, it sort of sounds to me like you kind of know your personality as far as like you're a doer, but you also have a short attention span. And so by adding this a little bit of organization, the 90-day goals, the spreadsheet, the steps, the deadline, just those few little things, it sounds like that kind of helps to provide a structure so that your brain or your personality or whatever is kind of as productive as it can be. And so was it always like this? Like, were you always just naturally good at this incremental progress, or were things kind of disorganized in the past and you had to kind of fix things?
I think I've always kind of been satisfied and been somebody who did things that way, but there was a long time there, Robert, where I didn't have any direction at all. And my goal for years was to get free, to own my own business, and to control my time. And I accomplished that about 6 years ago. And so there was about 2.5 years there where I spent a lot of time just here around the place. I love vegetable gardening. We moved into this place. There was really nothing on the property. We've got 6 acres out in central Texas. The first thing I did is I planted fruit and nut trees. And then I set about starting to raise chickens and then hogs. And then I slowly started putting a vegetable garden together. Once again, 6 years later, it's like, wow, look at this place. But we did a little bit every day. But when it came to business, I didn't have any direction during that period. And finally, I realized a couple things. Number one, the speed of the group is determined by the speed of the leader. And I had a bunch of distributors at the time, who most of which now are franchisees, who were looking for my leadership and looking for me to step out there and to lead and to set the example. And I started going to conferences. I started getting myself around people that would make me uncomfortable and force me out of my thought process and my comfort zone. And that led to relationships on many levels, one of which is a guy by the name of Aaron Walker that I met at a Dave Ramsey event in Nashville 3.5 years ago that completely changed my life. Aaron has been in business for 35 plus years, bought and sold 8 companies, multi-millionaire. And I ended up hiring him as a coach. And that was the best decision I've probably ever made in business, because I had somebody for the first time who had a vested interest in me succeeding, but who would also give me the straight scoop on what, I was doing right, what I was doing wrong, help me see things from a different perspective if my thought process was a little bit off, and also to be accountable to each and every week so that that bar could be moved forward. He's the reason why we've got a franchise today, because he challenged me that we had done a pretty good job in the first 7.5 years of our business, but there was a lot of low-hanging fruit still out there. And the only reason that these schools that we're working in didn't know about us was, we didn't have a big enough team yet to help them. That led to franchising. That led to the fact that in the last 14, 15 months, we've added 65 franchisees around the U.S. and are absolutely growing like a weed because I got people in my life around me who could make me better and hold me accountable.
And there's so much good stuff in there. And I like Mr. Aaron Walker too. I had him on the show last year, and I watch him do those live streams when he's walking along the fairway. A really great guy. And
Yeah.
there's so much good stuff in there about what you said. And sort of a recurring theme I'm hearing is sort of that support system that you mentioned earlier on, that when you were figuring this whole stuff out, you went to these Yahoo groups to kind of to kind of add to this book knowledge, and go there with different questions and kind of see how people are doing. And then this whole thing of going to events, having a mastermind, having a coach, all those things that we always hear, but it sort of seems like the successful people actually go ahead and get those things, and the unsuccessful people, they kind of, maybe they'll hear it and they know that they should do it, but it seems to me like a lot of people who kind of don't be the best that they can be, it seems like they're kind of missing out on that social support in one way or another, whether it's a group or a coach. And so that's all really like reassuring stuff. And so we've been talking about sort of these this whole franchise model and stuff like that. And I have to admit, like, I don't really know anything about this sort of business. So can you kind of explain it to me? Like when you go to get like you land a school or a franchisee or whatever. Like what's sort of the offer? What's the package you're offering?
Well, we essentially offer hassle-free fundraising for the school. We do all the work. They just cash a check every month. And we custom design spirit stickers for the school with their mascot and colors. We customize the machine and have equipment that is made specifically for us and our schools. And then we place that equipment and those custom stickers in the machine. And then we come out on a regular basis to service the machine, rotate the product, and cut them a check based on the proceeds of the machine each and every month.
Great.
It ends up being a win-win scenario. The school has a fundraiser where it doesn't require any volunteers for them or any upfront cost. And for our franchisees, it provides them a passive income stream and a business that they can run as a family. So their kids can be right alongside them learning entrepreneurship and helping do something together with mom and dad, unlike a lot of businesses out there. We found there's a lot of professionals that are looking to diversify but don't know how. And the beauty of a franchise is we've already been there, done that, figured it out. We've got the systems in place and have already proven our success, to where then it's just a matter of teaching somebody else how to duplicate the success habits that we've already taught and developed in their area. And in the process, they begin to put together a business that is 100% theirs. But in exchange for teaching them, we get a small royalty each and every month in exchange.
And so, if I'm understanding this business model correctly, so you kind of started off by with these gumball vending machines and sticker vending machines and stuff like that, and getting them set up in schools. And then you said, "Well, I'm going to make this sort of franchise program, this kind of business in a box, where someone can get all these materials and get the system and know how to do all that stuff, and then." And then they pay you a royalty, but they kind of have this sort of proven business model that they can implement if they don't live in, like your area of Texas you live in. If they're off in some other state or whatever, they can go to their local schools and sort of replicate what you've done. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, all the candy and gumballs and stuff I did in traditional businesses, restaurants, nail salons, and that type of thing. The sticker stuff is 100% of our focus in the schools. But yeah, you're exactly right. And we've just found there's a lot of people out there who like the idea of a business in a box, a proven model, and also one that they can do on a limited time commitment that doesn't force them to sacrifice their career that is paying the bills and keeping a roof over their head right now. I did this on the side from my full-time job for years before I finally was making enough money. I was actually making about four times here what I was making full time before I walked away because I wanted to make that shift and never have to go back again. And so I was super conservative in that regard. But the minute I walked away, we bought our very first house. I quit my job. We moved 5 hours away out into the middle of Texas. I call it EIEIO. And we haven't looked back. And today we call the shots. We get up when we want. We come and go as we please. We have homeschooled all three of our kids, two of which are in college today, and the third is 2 years away from being in college as well. And we've kind of chosen to do things our own way instead of following what everybody else says to do or is doing.
I mean, that definitely sounds like freedom to me, and I can relate to a lot of that as far as like the sort of not jumping ship too soon and getting the business rocking and rolling, so that way you didn't have to go back. And once you finally make that jump, like make that that big change, like how you moved and you bought the house and all that fun stuff, and that's sort of like yeah, like whenever but like back when I was working as an employee, also like I always just kind of had that thought of, well, I my hours were not my own. It sucked to have to like go to someone else to get time off, and then even though I was paid X amount of dollars, I was always thinking, well, I'm paid this amount of money, but then someone else above me is getting paid more money for the work that I was doing, and that kind of felt like maybe I guess sort of unfair, but also also realizing that well we all have a choice in life, and even if we're stuck in whatever kind of situation, if we say I want more freedom, I want more hours, there's always some sort of an escape plan to be made or to be found for sure. And so in all these sort of travels and tribulations and stuff you went through in building this business is sort of inching along, was there anything unexpected? Was there any point where you kind of just like had a completely huge problem where you just didn't know what to do and you were completely stuck?
Well, that goes back to about 3 years ago when I met Aaron, because I, like I said earlier, my whole goal in life was to get free. And I got free. And the big mistake that I made is I didn't recage or recalibrate or reset my goals and think even bigger. So there was a period of time there where we all just kind of stagnated and just hung out because I had accomplished what in my mind I always wanted to accomplish. And so refocusing, changing, Aaron talks a lot about going from success to significance and putting a lot more time and attention on putting together things that are going to create significance um, has been a big factor in us moving on. Starting the comic book company because I was inspired to read when I was a kid, reading comic books and seeing a lot of the material and content out there today that has adult themes, and deciding, what, we're going to produce content that doesn't, and that parents can be confident that the confidence is going to be safe for their kids. The kids can be excited and have fun reading, and hopefully many of them develop a lifelong reading habit like I've developed. Things like that. I've got some time and a little bit of capital to be able to dabble in some of those things. Initially, that was just a passion project that now we've got a publisher that we've just signed on with, and we'll be publishing three of those books here within the next year. Um, just because I had this crazy idea and had a little time and money to put towards it.
Sounds exciting. And what I'm hearing a lot from you is a lot of, like just being challenged and stepping up your game and sort of, and all that, good stuff that, again, we all kind of hear about that, but then it's easy to forget or it's easy to backslide. And these are all, I think, really important lessons or really important reminders for people listening, no matter what they're doing, no matter what their niche is, as far as like, having those good goals and having a real purpose and doing those things that make a difference. And especially with you noticing with those comic books and stuff like that, it sort of sounds like there's a lot of just being aware to the opportunities that are out there. And I mean, you came across this whole vending machine from a buddy at church, and like all these different things. And there's probably people all over the place who are just kind of already made up their mind that they can't make money or they're not going to do this business thing, and just ignoring all of the things right in front of them. So lots of really good stuff. And so if people are listening to all this and they're really interested in this whole vending machine school spirit sticker franchise idea, can you tell us where people should go if they liked our conversation and they want to go and check out your website?
Yeah, Robert, I wrote a short ebook here a couple years ago called Live Your Dreams, the top 10 reasons why you need to own a vending business. And for anybody in the audience who would like some insights from somebody who's been in this industry for about 13 years, many of which don't look at it as a real business. But just to give you an idea, we're approaching raising nearly $5 million for education in the last decade doing what we do. So there is money in it. But anyway, they can go to ssvbusiness.com/Robert Plank and download that for free. And at a minimum, learn a little bit more about vending and how it might benefit them. And if they want to start a dialogue about the franchise itself, would be more than happy to talk with folks about that as well and see what happens from there.
Great stuff. And I assume there is an easy way once people go to that page to find that contact information.
Yeah, there's a form that they can fill out, and that will come directly to us, and we can begin a dialogue there. Otherwise, we're at SSV Business on Twitter and on Facebook, and yeah, any of those ways, they're more than welcome to reach out.
Great stuff. And is there anything that people should kind of know going in about this franchise stuff? Like, is there like a startup fee? Do they get the machines from you, or do you teach them how to go and get them themselves? Or like, what should people know about just kind of getting up and running with your system?
For the machines, we have an exclusive supplier that everybody on our team gets their equipment from. I have nothing to do with that supplier except for we've got a long-standing relationship because they've supplied machines for me for years. As far as the franchise startup, it's just to give you an idea, the average franchise in the U.S. today is about $150,000 to get started. With SSV, it's less than 20. That gets them a protected territory of approximately 200 schools. That gets them a mentor with one of our veterans for the first 6 months that helps them and steps them through the process of getting their business up and off the ground. That gets them the product that they need for the first 5 schools that they place. And it also gets them the equipment that they need for those first 5 schools as well. So it's pretty much a turnkey operation from the very beginning. Of course, we do what we call SSV University here in Texas. Once folks get started, it's kind of an intensive day on a Saturday, typically, to go into all the detail of how we do things and what we do. We've got an online SSVU as well that complements the in-person course. And yeah, all the support. I actually, Robert, do 2 podcasts a week myself just for our franchise team. One of them is interviews with outside experts and with successful franchisees on our team. And then the other is me just sharing success insights and SSV insights with our team for 5 or 10 minutes each Thursday. And so there is a ton of support and a ton of information that we provide for them because we're not successful unless they are.
Great, and it sounds like you're banging on all cylinders as far as like the two podcasts and the SSV University and the book coming out. Lots of fun stuff. And so, sort of one last question, because I don't want to keep you for too long, but we've mentioned a few times about that whole need for social support and a coach. So, as part of joining your franchise program, is there like a Facebook group or a message board or some sort of place where people can go if they get stuck, or like what's the sort of solution if anyone gets stuck or isn't sure what to do once they're in your program?
We've got an online website. It's a portal that is specific for our franchisees. It's where they go to get their product and buy any of that. It's where they go. We have kind of a social media, Facebook kind of feel to it, to where people can ask questions, share information, that type of thing. We've got a extensive video, audio, and blog archive from about the last 7 years of content and material. And then, of course, they've also always got the ability to reach out to their mentor or ultimately to reach out to me. Everybody on our team has direct access to me, either via email, or I use the app Voxer almost exclusively for my communications for today. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's a great tool. It's essentially voicemail handled like text messaging. So somebody can send me a voice message. I can get it when I'm available, and I can respond back with a voice message so that we don't have to necessarily schedule a time for probably 95% of the things that need to be discussed. We can just communicate back and forth with voice. Text and email can be so cumbersome, and I've just found that talking through things is a lot simpler for me, takes a lot less time for folks.
Super fantastic. Well, it sounds like you've thought of everything. And so if you're out there listening and you're looking to either, generate some extra income and you want to set your own hours, and whether that's to sort of do this alongside a day job, or maybe if you're at retirement age and looking for some extra income, or whatever your situation is, it really doesn't make a lot of sense to kind of do what and to kind of try to clone everything Matt did, because it sounds like a lot of sort of trial and error, guess and check, sounds like years of work. It makes a lot more sense to plug into this franchise that's already there, because the plan's proven. If someone goes and looks you up, they can see that you're part of this actual established system, not just someone who started things up. So it makes a lot of sense to use this sort of franchise proven business model, business in a box, whatever it is that you want to call it. So if you're out there listening and you're curious about what Matt's up to, or you want to jump on this franchise program, make sure that you go to ssvbusiness.com/Robert Plank and check out that guide and check out the information Matt has for you so that you can kind of jump on this money making process for yourself. So I want to thank you, Mr. Matt, so much for stopping by and being a little vulnerable with us and sharing your story and your insights and talking about this program. I really appreciate it, and I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on.
Yeah, Robert, thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it, and God bless you.
Please subscribe, rate, and review our show at robertplank.com/iTunes, and like us on Facebook at robertplankshow.com.